Well, joining us now is Mona Abuamara, the Chief Representative of the Palestinian General Delegation to Canada. Madam Abuamara, thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.
So I want to begin with your reaction to what we heard from Mélanie Joly this week, this idea, this acknowledgement that there needs to be work towards a ceasefire. What do you say to that?
It's a great message, and for us we feel it's long overdue because we have been facing with the war machine of Israel when a green light is given by the free world, by countries like the US, Canada and Europe. So just starting to hear those voices support such an action to stop the bloodshed and the genocide of the Palestinian people is something we really appreciate.
Up until now, we've heard from the Prime Minister saying that there needs to be humanitarian pauses, and we now know that Israel has agreed to 4-hour daily pauses in the fighting. I want to begin with this idea of a humanitarian pause. Why is that so different for you than an idea of a ceasefire?
It's not different, and it's really different. The main thing is, what do you do after? So when those hours end, that's what tells you if that's something we support or not. Because if you're just providing water, food, and medical supplies for the injured, and then you start bombing them again, it defies the purpose. It's counterproductive of finding a final solution that could prevent such atrocities from happening to begin with. And that's why we were calling for a ceasefire, an end to the aggression, so the people, the civilians, 2.5 almost million Palestinians would feel safe. And the other thing is that even when Israel claims that it's providing those 4 hours or those paths that are safe for people to transport on, we've seen even today people who were trying to get to the south being shot at and while they're doing so. So there is a need to have a very firm statement by the leaders to make Israel actually adhere to the international law and to its responsibilities as an occupying power.
Well, as you and I are recording this interview, and to be completely transparent to people at home, this is Friday afternoon that you and I are discussing or speaking with each other. There are right now reports coming out of from Gaza where the fighting is around hospitals, and explosions have been heard near hospitals, and this is where people and patients are being treated right now. What have you heard about that situation?
It's not new. It has intensified, and it's a problem now because whenever Israel bombs one hospital, people would leave there and go to another one, or whenever the fuel in one hospital ends, then they can't operate, it's turned off, and then they have to evacuate and go somewhere else. So now Al-Shifa Hospital is a scene of a total tragedy. And the problem for the Palestinians is that all of those scenes that the world is seeing is allowed to continue. And there is no human reasoning behind any such atrocities that are being committed and inflicted on the Palestinian people that have not done anything wrong. And just excusing that as a goal of Israel to attack Hamas, which it's not doing, it's attacking the whole of the Palestinian population, and it's most vulnerable because half of that population are kids.
Mm-hmm. It echoes in many ways what you're saying to us right now, what we've heard from UN officials, that right now there is no safe place to go in Gaza. Can you talk to us about what you're hearing about the lack of safety and where people are meant to go?
I can tell you from a personal experience, I have family in Gaza, and the other day we heard of their building where 3 sons live with their wives and kids there, so 10 children. They convinced their parents to come and stay with them in the house because they live right next to Al-Shifa Hospital. The boys, the 3 men, have a restaurant that they built their apartments on top of. So the whole building went down. Their parents were with them. So the elderly man and woman with their 3 sons were in the basement of the restaurant because they thought that was the safest place to be. The sons' wives with the 10 kids were on the upper floor in a room. The whole 4-story building was shattered to pieces. They managed, thankfully, to get the 3 women and their children. They were injuries. 2 of them, of the women, serious. One was 9 months pregnant. She is still pregnant. She didn't give birth, and she broke her leg and now in Ashifa hospital. And the other one had a head injury. The kids had injuries. They managed to pull them out, but the 5 were now are martyrs, and they couldn't pull them out till the next 2 of them till the next day, and 3 stayed for 2 more days until they were able to pull them out. So it's and I only have few in Gaza. We are refugees. Like, people were dispossessed from historic Palestine. My family from Jaffa, and some had that next step, staying in Gaza. So us as a family, we have little family in Gaza, not a lot as others who are losing 150 at a time of people, just whole families being erased from the civil record. So it's a national trauma, Michael, and that's the thing that we do not understand, how the world sees this happening and is not moving to end it.
Mm-hmm. If I may, and I don't want to be insensitive here to what you just shared with us, but when the issue is raised about the civilian casualties in Gaza, we hear it often from current American officials, past American officials, who lay the blame on Hamas, because they say that Hamas has spent the time to build hundreds of kilometers worth of tunnels purposely beneath civilian enclaves, beneath hospitals, schools, places where normally war would try to stay away from, but Hamas is the one that has endangered the Palestinian people. What do you say to that rationale?
Of course they say that, but as usual, no proof has been provided. And every time the US or Israel comes out with recordings or videotapes, and they wouldn't be accepted in family court if anyone would want to have proof or evidence of anything. You wouldn't take it in family court, not to mention to excuse a genocide. We don't understand why they wouldn't open Gaza to the international organs and prove that this is what's happening. It's easy. If you know it, you can show it. And show us how many of those tunnels you found, how many of those Hamas militants that are in those hospitals, schools, and bakeries and homes were bombed. My family, the building that my family was in, is a building where only those members are in. So what is the excuse for that? And do they deserve justice or not? So those are the questions that are asked to not just the Israeli government, it's to all those governments who take whatever Israel is saying for granted. But then when those evidence are proved to be bogus, no one's talking about it.
The Israeli Prime Minister says that there will be no talk of any ceasefire whatsoever until the hostages are held, and he is calling for their release. Where do things stand there now? Do you think that their release might be possible to bring about a ceasefire?
So I can't speak for Hamas or know what their rationale on this is, but what we hear from our Arab counterparts, on TV, and we've heard that there were a lot of instances where there could be a swap, but then that Israel did not want to go through with it. I believe that the reason behind this is that Netanyahu wants to save himself on one side by creating this whole dilemma and creating this monster that he's fighting, so nobody would actually look at what he has done during all those decades, not to mention now how this whole situation came to be and the injustice is built. On the other hand, the outlook on not providing justice for the Palestinians need an excuse, and that is being used so much by the Western world that we have been, even before this aggression happened, we have been calling for the implementation of international law. We have been calling for the implementation of the two-state solution, but our land kept getting smaller and our people kept being butchered. So on that level, all of these aggressions that are happening right now are part of a bigger plan that Israel has, and it's to create this deal of the century type of situation forcibly on the ground, even if we do not accept it.
Quickly running out of time, but what is your message to the Canadian government at this point?
I think that Canada needs to step up as the defender and promoter of human rights and the rules-based international order with action. The history will remember the actions that are happening right now, and going forward, I hope that Canada would not keep Palestine as an exception to that protection, and the need for self-determination and justice to be served, because without justice there can be no peace.
Madam Abuamara, thank you for this. Appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.